Hello everyone and welcome to part 2 of making Elizabeth Bennet's dress. For those of you who haven't seen part 1, that was all about making the shirt. I'll link it below, up, below, everywhere. To recap, I decided to make this dress because it's my favourite from the 2005 film and I've always really loved that film. I know it's controversial, lots of people prefer the BBC adaptation, but I really enjoy both. However, I didn't just want to make this as a costume reproduction or a historically accurate version or anything like that. I wanted to make something that was comfortable, well made, flattering, and most importantly, machine washable. This video is the same vlog style as the one before. I had to make the dress in about 2 days, so it's a lot faster to just do quick check-ins as I go. And you'll notice the clanking sound is gone from this video, but it won't be from those clips because they were a little while ago. My street is finally fixed, so that noise hopefully won't feature ever again in my videos. Yeah, I also have some finished footage of the dress from that time I wore it that weekend. It was my first outing since lockdown, so it was very exciting. However, it was really windy that day, so the footage is a bit shaky. But yeah, without further ado, let's get to it. Hello everyone and welcome to the second video. Wait, I think intro cat would have already said this. Anyway, I am now working on the brown dress from Pride and Prejudice. I'll insert a photo here. If you've missed the first video, which was about the shirt, I will link it up, below, all around. Yes, so for the dress, I've started planning it out. I'm still doing a bit of research based on the screenshots that I have. This is the basic outline of it. And I noticed in one of the screenshots about the closure of this. So the closure is at the center front, so you can see that she's got like 4 little buttons at the front where it sort of laps over. But obviously there's no center front seam down the skirt. So this actually reminded me of an 18th century dress I made. For example, this one, you can see that the way they did it is, on this one there's a slit down the side of the skirt and then it sort of goes over that and ties down. And then the front here ties at the top as well. Now this won't work because I need to have the front closure here. But what this kind of reminded me of was this 18th century dress I made. So I'm going to go show you that because I've just pulled it out. Oh, this book, by the way, is Costume in Detail by Nancy Bradfield. It's a great book because she's got all these really detailed sketches. Here's the dress I was talking about. So this is a robe à l'anglaise that's from the 18th century. Doesn't have a particular date, so I didn't know much about that back then. But, so this closes at the center front here with hooks and eyes. But obviously the skirt doesn't have a center front seam or any sort of ways to close it at the center front. So instead, what it does have is side, and then it has a couple of snaps on here which obviously aren't historically accurate, and a hook and eye. So I'm pretty sure I can do this on that dress. So I'm rewatching it for research, of course. Have I seen this film too many times? Yes. Will I stop? No. So I just noticed, well, I don't think I've ever watched it looking out for costumes because, as I mentioned, I hate the Regency. However, I've just noticed that this dress she wears is actually quite similar. You can see there's just a tiny little button there and a center front closure as well. So I'm assuming this is the same thing where this bit of the bodice here is not attached to anything and it's just staying up because it seems to be pinned to the other side, which is a very like 18th century style of constructing, so very interesting. Very much acclaimed hand seam. Actually that's a really good shot of the dress so you can see the closure quite well. So you can see there, right there, the little button and the little slit on the front of the skirt. I finalised this just so I could understand what's going on, and I did like a little sketch of how it'll fit. So the bodice will be attached on this side and that side, but there'll be a little flap of bodice that'll be hanging loose, and then that will be secured by the buttons. If the buttons are not sufficient to keep it in place, I can always pin it down here. And then the skirt will close with a little button here, which is visible in the film. The other thing is that I draped the bodice. You can't really see my faint pencil lines here, but the bodice should be really straightforward. I'm doing it as a 1 piece at the front, and then I haven't draped the back yet, but it'll be 2 pieces at the back. And then at the front, the only issue is that there are no visible darts whatsoever. And obviously Keira Knightley's shape is very different to mine. So mine will have, I'm trying to distribute the excess fabric, and I think maybe by playing around with grain lines I might be able to make it lie flat without darts. So here's the first mock-up. It's okay. There are a few alterations that I already marked to do, as in it's a little bit big, so I'll be taking it in. And I've also got some issues with the underarm. So obviously most clothes have a bust dart to make it fit around the bust. but there are no darts whatsoever in this, and I've marked how much I have to take out, and I need to go and figure out. There used to be a method where you can make the dart disappear into the side seam. It's a whole thing. Okay, so here's how I fixed the bust dart problem. So this was taught to me by Helen. I'll put her Instagram handle here. She's really amazing seamstress. And so what you do is you pin how much of the dart you need to take away, and then you follow that curve in the paper, you draw it out, and then you cut up to it, and then whatever this new wedge is, you remove half from the side and half from the front. Now, I didn't want to mess with this front because of the nice curve I had. I really like the shape of it. So instead I just removed half of it off this edge, but I had already made some waist adjustment. So I'm just going to try this and see how it works. And if I need to, I think I'll try removing more from this side rather than the front. The other alteration I did was I curved the shoulder here. I removed an inch from here just to make it sit a bit tauter. So I think my pattern is pretty much finalized. Removing the width from the dart here made it so I needed a lot more in the front here, and it kind of had to be curved because of the bust point needed more than the waist or the top. I'm going to cut it with large seam allowances so that I can make any alterations. I know this really means like nothing. These are alteration modifications. But yeah, so it's going to have a front panel that flares out a little bit at the bottom. And then the rest of the skirt is going to be one long piece. Speaking of fabric, this is my fabric. This is a really nice weightless linen. I think it's a little bit sturdier than the one in the film. But I mean, linen gets a bit softer with washes, so I think you'll definitely get, and it's really beautiful, but as you can tell, it's not brown. So instead what I'm going to do is dye it, because I couldn't find an affordable linen anywhere. Well, I mean online, because I can't go to shops right now, of course. I couldn't find anything even near the colour I needed. So instead I'm going to try to dye it. I've actually had pretty decent experiences dyeing natural fibres before. A bit of taupe and cocoa brown. If you go to their website, they've got a really nice formula book, and I picked the closest shade, and they give you like the formula that you need for it. So I'm going to try that and do a couple of tests and see how that goes. And to show you guys, I use this app a lot for references because sometimes colours that look different, of course. This is the Pantone app, and you can upload a photo and then select colours within it that you want, and then it tells you here the colours. And here's another one. So here's my dye bath. This is actually the first time I'm dyeing in the bathtub, so I'm a bit nervous about it staining, but it shouldn't, so it should be okay. I've added some dish soap to it and a cup of salt. I've got my dyes. I'm about to mix that. And I've pre-wet my fabric. And yeah, I might just check in after, because this is actually a really time-consuming and involved process. So here we are. This has been in a dye bath for about an hour. It looks about right. So here's my dyed fabric. It is currently in fabric purgatory because I couldn't commit to the colour, to be honest. It shows up on camera very differently from what it does in real life. In real life it has a really rosy pink undertone, which I'm not at all happy with. I'm going to try and colour correct it, which means I'm going to put it in a really diluted bath of, I think I'm going to start with apple green. I'll do a couple of swatches. It was also recommended that I try yellow. It is very close, and it does show up on camera as very close. Please excuse the unclean kitchen, but today we are experimenting with colour correcting. So my dyes finally arrived, and I've just been doing some quick swatch tests to try and fix this colour. There you go. But so this is it wet. Oh my god, the light in here is terrible for filming because it's the kitchen. Anyway, the current one wet, and then I've got this parade of swatches. So there were two things I was trying, which was to colour correct with apple green and then to colour correct with sunshine yellow. I've had vastly drastic results, and they were in there for different times, and then I ended up diluting it a bit more. So these are the most successful swatches, and they were only in, I think this one was in for swatch number 4, 1 minute, and that was in for 1 minute as well. But obviously once I've got all of the fabric, it will be much further diluted, so it'll still only be like a quick dip in out kind of thing. I'm not sure which one I'm leaning more towards. I'm gonna wait for them to dry and then try and make a decision, but you can definitely see that that one is much pinker. This one's obviously too yellow, and that one's obviously too green. But I think one of these will work. So here's my little swatch collection. This is the original, the color corrected ones. I've also got my notes because I wrote down what all of them are and then number them with a Sharpie. Green is definitely successful in making it a bit more neutral. And then this is the yellow, just a tiny little bit of yellow. Because, see if the camera can catch this. There's only a very slight difference between this and this. And I think the pink undertone is definitely corrected into this. So here is the color correcting bath. It's got half a tablespoon of golden yellow and like 1 drop of black. And I'm not gonna lie, it kind of just looks like a big tub of pee. Not very attractive. And I've currently just got a little swatch in there for 5 minutes because obviously this is much more diluted than the little tester I did before. So I just need to measure how long I need to leave it in there for. Not very long at all because it was in there for a minute and it was good enough. So I might just do this one for 3 minutes and then see what happens and then try and decide how long to leave the actual fabric for because I don't want to ruin the whole fabric. So here's the fabric after color correcting and I think it is bang on. So I'm going to go ahead and cut it. Hello guys! So after I talked to you about the princess seams and how I did a mock-up, this is my second mock-up of the princess seams. You can see that there's still a little bit of pull here, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to add just a tiny bit extra to the bust, and also because the linen has got a bit more give than the calico, I'm counting on that as well. So here is my final pattern. As you can see, it's 4 pieces, 2 for the front, 2 for the back, and with shaping seams on both. So I'm about to cut my pattern out and I just wanted to talk really briefly, I always say that but I always ramble on, about how I'm going to do that. First of all, after the fabric dried, I pressed it, but something I noticed was that my iron isn't great and it actually leaks quite often. And what happened was wherever it leaked, it kind of left a discoloration. You can see it's a little bit more yellow. And this happened a few times across the whole of the fabric. I'm not sure why, like sometimes it does leak and on other fabrics, but it doesn't usually stain them. But I guess because this was hand dyed, I don't know. So what I did was I marked this side of the fabric so that I can cut the bodice out of here so I can shape around it, because the skirt is going to be like pretty much just straight up loads of fabric, so I won't be able to cut around things like this. And then for the bodice, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add 1-inch seam allowances to all bits so that I can fit it further on if I need to. So here are all my cutout pieces. I had this crazy moment when I was doing the first one, the front piece, that I would trace it all individually and thread trace it, and then I realized that was ridiculous. This is meant to be a fun little project. So now I'm just gonna tackle the seams, baste, sew, repeat. So I just wanted to do a quick word on princess seams, so like shaped curved seams. A lot of people struggle with them. I think I did in the beginning as well, but then I started they sort of clicked in my head, and so far they've been pretty straightforward for me. The number one thing I would say is baste. Always baste. It just makes them so much easier. The second thing is always sew on the machine with the largest piece. So the one that bubbles like this is the one that is being slightly gathered to the other length. So always sew with that one underneath, because usually machines, as far as I understand, the bottom bit actually feeds a tiny bit faster than the top bit. So that really helps. And then the other thing is that because you will have the shorter bit at the top, you can also create some tension where you pull a little bit. You don't want to pull it out of shape, you just sort of gently guide it. I actually met someone once that just did princess seams without any pins, without any basting, just freehand. So that's a whole different world. I haven't been able to do that because I am a control freak. But anyway, this works quite well for me. Hello everyone. So much has happened since the last video. I've started putting together the skirt. So what happened to the bodice was I turned the neckline in by the seam allowance and just pressed it. So that's just pressed at the moment just so I can see the style lines properly and also fit it properly at the front. And then what I also did was I finished all of the seams. You see that? Focus, little camera. by flat filling them by hand. And now I've cut out the skirt, which was very stressful because I've worked so hard on this fabric. So it's picking up a lot more yellow on the camera, interesting. So what I did was, there's a panel at the front here and it is 8 inches wide at the top and then it flares out a bit. And then the back is just a massive rectangle, that I have gathered down. Now I had to cut out some volume from the skirt because I was trying to maximize how much fabric I was using to use as much as possible, because I'm used to full skirts. I'm used to full skirts and that's just how I like them. But this is not the style for this. So I've actually cut out a lot of the volume, and once I spread out the gathers properly and also iron them, because I think clearly the ones in the film are ironed, it'll look a lot better. So that's what I'm going to do next. I'm going to, obviously this is just pinned on, none of this is sewn. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the front panel on this side, because the other side is left loose up until a point so I can get it on and off. And then I'm going to sort out the gathers so that they're nice and even, and then sew the other seam up to a point, finish those edges, and then work on attaching it to the bodice. There's also a 1 inch strip that needs to go around the bodice as sort of a waistband. Hello everyone. So a lot has happened since my last check-in because this has been very hands-on. But as you can see, it's come together. So I had to do this really weird closure thing, which is what I'm going to talk about because that might be the most confusing thing. So the bodice has a center front closure. The skirt obviously doesn't. So I think I mentioned this briefly in the beginning of the vlog. Where I did was, there's a slit. There's about a 6 inch gap on that side seam there. And then the little waistband thing will have a little button here that hooks over, and this will be pressed really nicely. And then I'll put in a hook and eye on the inside there as well to just keep it really nice. And that should hopefully work. Doesn't look the best on the dress form, but I think I've got the right amount of volume and everything, so I'm just gonna finish those little things off. Hello everyone. So I haven't really been updating because I've been trying really hard to get this dress finished ASAP because I want to wear it this weekend. It is now Thursday, and because I've pushed, I think it will be finished. All I've got left to do are some closures, finishing the armhole and the hem. So for the armhole, there's a few different ways to finish the armholes, but there's no evidence of how it was finished on the original dress in the screenshots or the film. It's just to turn the seam allowance under twice and then hand sew it down. Because of the sharp curve of the armhole, I did have to clip the seam at quite a few different points, but that just makes it easier to turn down. And then once you make it into a narrow seam, you can't really see the clip points anyway. So I'm just going to finish doing that and then hand sew it with a whip stitch. So final stages of construction. The dress is pretty much finished on the inside, at least. I think it looks pretty good. Some things I'd like to point out is that obviously I'm never going to look like Keira Knightley because my body is entirely different. She is much thinner and her torso is longer, so the proportions of the dress are a bit different. And obviously I've made the seams here to adapt to the bust because my bust is bigger, and because of the weight of the fabric they are a bit more prominent than hers. But that's okay. So the things I still have left to do is I need to finish off the hem. I think it's a nice length at the moment, but I would like to give it just another inch, just so I can wear it with whatever shoes and don't care. The other thing I need to do is set the buttons in here. I've just marked the placement of the top one and the bottom one, and then the other two will be equidistant. The other thing I did was mark, there is one button on here, and I'll need to finish off these little tapes. And something I've done as well is I've threaded through a piece of ribbon through the waistband here, because I'll keep it just really nice and fit to my body, and also it will let me give it a bit of a slack if I ever need to, instead of putting a hook and eye or something on the inside. And that I think would be quite comfortable to wear, and also it defines my waist a little bit better because I thought I made the bodice a tiny bit bigger than I should have. But yeah, so working order is finish the waistband. I also have to sew a little eyelet on the inside here. Sew buttons, sew button loops, hem. So I finished the hem and I just wanted to show you what I did. So the hem is about it's about 1.5 inches wide with 1/2 inch tucked under so that there's no raw edge. And then I just did a herringbone stitch, and this is quite discreet on the outside. So that's the hem done. The only thing that's left to do technically is the buttons and the button loops. I really want to wear this dress tomorrow, so I'm just waiting for the post today to see if the buttons I ordered came. If not, I'll be putting in some temporary buttons just so I can wear it tomorrow. And I need to thread through the ribbon. I did a hand sewn little eyelet here so that the ribbon can come out. And I'll put this on the dress form later on when the buttons are on so you can see the opening and closure better. But the only other thing I'm doing right now is I wanted to add a pocket. So this pattern is based on a 1940s original pocket pattern, and this is the one I use for most of my skirts because it's a really good size, it's quite deep, it'll fit like my phone and a couple of other things. So I've just cut it out of the linen and I'm going to very quickly sew it with the French seam so it's nicely finished, and then I'm going to slot it in, hopefully into the opening here. I'll have to find the most discreet way, probably towards the back, and then it'll be accessible-ish, but at least I'll get to keep my phone on me, and yeah, that'll be really useful. So I'm currently just investigating the pocket installation. So ideally it would be towards the front so that when you put your hand in, you just go like that. However, this dress has a very flat front, and at the side towards the back there is a lot of gathering. So what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to pin it here and then whip stitch it on along this seam here and to the waistband so that whatever weight I put in the pocket isn't dragging down this seam and will instead be supported by the waistband across there as well. But this way, because of the gathering, I think it'll be way more discreet when I've got the pocket and things in the pocket, and so it'll be a bit more awkward to get to, but it'll be there and it'll be a bit more discreet, I think. This is the final try on. These are only temporary buttons. I'll do a full reveal. I'm hoping to wear it tomorrow, even though it's going to be a little bit rainy. The only last thing I need to do is that this button here is not far away enough so that it doesn't create enough tension on there. So I'm just going to move it about 1/2 inch away, and then they'll have a little bit more tension to keep it taut. But otherwise, I think quite a success. I think I showed you guys the button loops, so I just wanted to show you also the buttons by comparison. So these are the buttons I had on hand, which were the same size of the ones I ordered, but they look very different and these are closer to the ones in the film. But these were the ones I had on hand when I went to wear the dress last Saturday. So I just put those on, and now I'm just replacing them with the ones that arrived in the post. And I think obviously that works a lot better than the stark white from the buttons. So I'm really happy with that. I will hopefully have some footage to insert at the end of this video. I'm really happy with the project as it turned out. It's a really comfy dress. I like that it has a pocket. It's a nice colour. It's really light. And I hope the weather in England turns around so I can wear it outside whenever lockdown's over. Hi you guys. So it's been a couple of days. I can't really remember the last thing I showed you because the dress was finished. But the thing is, so I was gearing up to wear it and I've worn it out once now. And I just wanted to let you know about, I don't know, underwear. I draped this bodice on the stand without any foundations on it. And then I always fitted to myself wearing a particular bra, which I thought was the closest I had to a Regency bra. I know, weird concept. I'll insert a clip of them here. However, it was really hard to fit it because obviously bras give you a bit more bust and they change your silhouette and shape. So it was always really hard to fit such a straight dress over your my bust. However, I've now tried this on over like a really plain bralette kind of thing, and it fits a lot nicer. There's less pulling here. It's just got a much smoother shape, even with the curved seams. I think over a bralette, I could have done it without the French seam debacle. So yeah, just in case you're planning your own dress, just I think it's really important to determine what you want to wear it for, if it's day to day and what you're comfortable wearing day to day, and then make sure that fits. I'm not sure how clear it is how it closes from the previous clip, so I just thought I'd show you how it is undone. So you can see this has got the string here that connects to the string there, and that is looped and keeps it taut that way. And this has a button that closes there, and then these 4 buttons.